2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I am your host, David Stragian. Here in the room, I have, hello, Dane. Welcome back. Wherever you
Daniel Boone.
Mo. Hello.
Hey, I am here.
Jake. And
my avatar's here.
There he is.
And there's me.
Hey, Dane.
Oh, I'm loving that camera angle.
Can you hear me?
Keep that up all night.
Dane.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
I wonder if he's having technical difficulties too. That's why I don't have video. Technical difficulties.
I'll just have to give him a call here.
Yes.
You do that.
That might be the mating call. And he might, we might see him humping your leg or something like that. And I don't want to see that.
No, we'll see Mr. Anderson doing that.
But in any case, so ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a double feature of 2 different shark films, although they're not that different because they have the same kind of shark.
Well,
one might be considered better.
We'll just say they're at different ends of the quality spectrum.
well, yeah, more or less. Well, we got one that's kind of different levels of quality. Let's put it that way.
I wouldn't even say different types of movies, though. I would say The Meg is similar to this in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Vibe-wise, it's just obviously on like a Hollywood level, where this is like
Sci-Fi Channel level.
Right.
Jake, why don't you tell us what movie we are going to be talking about in this time frame?
All right, we are kicking off with a movie that makes Sharknado look like high art. It's called Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, and it has a astounding IMDb rating of 2.5 out of 10. So the basic gist per IMDb. The California coast is terrorized by 2 enormous prehistoric sea creatures as they battle each other for supremacy of the sea. Now, I'm not sure how accurate that is because one of them went for Japan first, and to be honest, I kind of lost track of where they ended up ultimately.
Yeah, Mega Shark kind of traveled all over the globe.
Right. There's so basically, you start with
Major Dane.
You start with this quote-unquote scientist, Emma McNeil, who's played by Debbie Gibson, and her stalwart companion, who are apparently lifted a sub, borrowed, quote-unquote, a sub, to do some exploration. And meanwhile, some military outfit, if I understand correctly, was testing an illegal sonar, which causes a whale stampede, basically, which leads to the glaciers breaking, and then these 2 frozen creatures get loose. Yeah, that's the first 10 minutes in a nutshell. And so anyway, I wonder what everyone's first impressions are. We'll start with you, Mo. What are your thoughts on this one?
Mo?
Oh, it's fun, man. It reminds me a lot of the movies that my mom would. You guys got me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Motherfucker. Okay.
We did.
Okay. Reminds me a lot of movies that my mom used to like check out from Hollywood Video back in the day. And she'd bring on like Boa versus Python or something like that to try to be cool and like get us a scary movie, you know? It was always some crappy like off-brand fucking creature movie like this.
Off-brand.
It's just good fun. You know, the CGI is bad. Yeah, it's great value shit. There's a lot, like an overabundance of mediocre dialogue, like any proper B movie, you know? A lot of the heads-up displays on their computers look like those skins you would get for your real player back in the day. It's just you immediately know that you are dealing with pure quality here.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Oh yeah.
All right. How about you, Dane?
Me?
Oh, either of you. I said Dane, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm not
Dane.
sure. Dane, are you having trouble connecting?
Yeah, I couldn't understand which one you said, but
sorry.
yeah, I saw this. It's all right. I saw this movie some years ago. It was one of those. I saw it was on Blu-ray at the local store that I go to. Back when we were able to go out and go places that were non-essential. I got it for like $3 or something, and that was about what it was worth. But like you said,
You might have
Mike
overpaid a
said,
little bit, for being real.
well, it does everything that a good B movie should do. It's ridiculous. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got a very obviously low budget. The effects are bad. They recycle a lot of shots. The sets themselves look very cheap, and like Ed Wood, I think Ed Wood would have been proud of this film because it's very much in that spirit. And I mean, he probably would have thought the effects were mind blowing, but
Oh yeah.
as far it gives you exactly what the title promises. So I mean, that's more than I can say for a lot of films. That there are certain ones that they don't really live up to the title, but Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus most definitely lives up to the title, and it's got giant tentacles going all over the place, and you got a shark jumping out of the water to specifically eat a plane. So it's like, how can you go wrong with that?
Right.
I mean, that image alone is what clearly is what greenlit the movie, and is what makes it worth seeing. And I mean, come on, it's the one where the shark eats the plane. It's like, how can you go wrong with that? That's like the perfect movie.
Now, whether you bet that and the image of the shark chomping the Golden Gate are like a quarter of the budget of the film, maybe more.
I guarantee you.
Yeah. I like the part in the beginning with the recycled shots of the CGI whales over and over again, the same exact shot.
Right.
Oh, I love it when they loop footage like that and something. Like, it's not, they could have done more. They just didn't care to.
So you brought up a good name to put on. So it's like Ed Wood doing a sci-fi TV movie. There you go.
Yeah. I can seriously see Ed Wood being like, "Hell yeah!" and then going and watching the Meg and being like, "Okay, you guys did too much."
Yeah, dude.
He'd be like, I could have made 10 films for what y'all paid for Jason Statham.
Actually, I think that Ed Wood would have, if he was born later on, if he was doing films in like the 80s and 90s, he would have either done TV movies or straight to video. He would have jumped on that market.
Oh, you could have been like a Don Dohler type of a dude, doing a lot with a little.
Right.
Oh yeah. So, well, I mean, this kind of movie is very much in his wheelhouse. I mean, it's not so gothic. Obviously, like a lot of his stuff was more like influenced by gothic horror, but then also the popular sci-fi movies of the day. So it was kind of a neat fusion. But that was also of his day. But then the modern B movie spectaculars tend to revolve around sharks and giant monsters and things like that. So I think he would have definitely grappled onto he would have gotten on that bandwagon pretty readily. And like you said, he probably would have made a ton of movies for the price of one big one.
Right. I now y'all are saying this, and I'm seeing like the role of the older scientist, the mentor, would have definitely been Bela Lugosi. And then, I guess, was it Vampira? I think that was in all his. be like the
I think she's
scientist.
only in like one.
Oh. But
But,
anyway, Dave,
yep.
what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, my thoughts on this film is that it was definitely very cheaply done. I saw this movie back when it was on Sci-Fi Channel. Like, because they would rape the shit out of some movies over and over and over, and this was one of them that they would have in a series of shark films like Octopus and Sharknado, and Sharknado's really what kicked it off, actually. But
there were a couple of Mega Shark versus ones. They did
Well, I mean, there were a lot of movies similar to Sharknado before, but they just didn't quite have that massive social media following.
Right.
Yeah,
that
they definitely took up a
Sharknado
sizable section of the shelf at Hollywood Video, though. Like, there's just
yeah, but well, I mean, there
crappy
was
fucking creatures on cases.
and Python, this and that. It was if it wasn't Shark,
Titanoboa, I think, was one of them.
well, and there was a Piranhaconda. There's
Piranhaconda?
oh yeah. Well, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of great creature films that like I have a particular love for those just because they can be really creative with their titles and with their like despite the fact that the CGI is completely horrible and it's ridiculous, it has like a certain charm to it, mostly because the monsters that they choose to animate tend to be a lot more unique looking than a lot of the CGI monsters that you see in most big budget movies that they look a little too safe and too familiar. At the very least, it's like you got something called Sharktopus. They're like, fuck it, just go with it.
Yeah, just get stupid with it and have fun, Like,
but they give you what you want. Yeah,
Yes.
That's what I love about movies like that is that everything that would make you want to see it is in the title, and they live up to it. It's honesty and advertising, and you cannot fault them for that.
And Asylum was good for that kind of a rehashing of stock footage and using different actors just to create a story that's just as stupid as the last one. So to me, seeing this film, I mean, you have Lorenzo Lamas who was in Falcon Crest and shows like Renegade, which was badass.
Yes, it was.
Of course,
he was in Greece too, wasn't he?
Kind of clean cut. He almost looks kind of gaunt in here. Whereas, in other Asylum films, I actually watched two different films from the Asylum because I had given my fiance a copy of Mega Shark versus Octopus and 30,000 Leagues from Under the Sea. On a double feature thing. So I continued to watch 30,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And Lorenzo Lamas is in there. They regurgitate some of the submarine scenes where you see it underneath the battleship a couple of times. You see the same cardboard keys.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great stuff, mostly because they're able to do things that no big budget movie would ever think to do, and I mean that's what you gotta love about low budget movies, even if the budget is not sufficient to make truly spectacular visual effects. They at the very least they compensate with creativity and charm and just the fact that they just go for it. Like I think there's one called I think there's one called Super Shark where they have to get out like the mecha weapons. And then there's Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus, and then there's like
the Mecha Shark.
There's Mecha Shark, and then there's one with like a giant robot, and it's like, come on, just like throw shit at the screen and just just go for it. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, there's tons of places to get inspiration for that too. I mean, you ever go to like a truck stop out here, you see like a jackalope eventually. That'd be a sweet creature for one of those types of movies,
Who knows
just
where
sworms
thoughts
of
come from?
jackalopes
They just
spearing people
appear.
with their antlers and shit.
Well, another good one is Two-Headed Shark Attack. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That has
I've heard of that one.
that one has Carmen Electra in it, and
Ha!
yeah,
Oh,
it's,
there you go.
well, that alone is an incentive. But
Actually, she's in a movie that I will be presenting one of these days for this channel.
What epic movie?
No, we will one day we will have to cover the mating habits of the earthbound human. That was a good. Anyway, so Brandon, how about you?
sorry.
Oh, so yeah, this film was in my wheelhouse. I at one point made it my mission to watch the worst films humanly possible. And I was known for trying to track down just terrible films just because I wanted to see them.
Like epic movie.
Like epic movie. And
I saw that in the theater back in the day.
Woo.
But I was also a dumb 15-year-old kid, so.
Did you get some Birdemic up in that fucking marathon?
Birdemic is horrible.
I need to watch that film. I keep having it in my lineup, and I have yet to watch it.
Yeah, I just seen the documentary on the dude, and the fact that he thinks it's such a good movie, or at least he did. I don't know if he's playing into the gimmick now, but
I think the second one he was a little bit more aware of things.
Yeah, and that sucks. But the first one, man, he was he thought he did, and that just made me want to get behind it. I don't care how big of a piece of shit it is.
Well, it's like Troll 2.
Yeah, exactly. I'll rep that shit till I die, because that's just, it's the and the guy still doesn't understand why people think it's bad. You know, he's
well, it's like whenever Brandon, whenever we get to make that tinfoil collection, whenever that becomes a thing, we'll need to make sure to hire people to sit there and do documentaries and interviews just like they're doing a Criterion interview.
Yeah. The whole concept of the tinfoil collection is Criterion collection status for movies like Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus.
Oh, dude, that's so beautiful.
Or probably some better examples would be things like Santa Claus
I am
Conquers the
insanely
Martians
behind that idea.
Yeah, Santa Claus
Holy
Conquers
shit.
the Martians.
Or
Things like that.
Or you could even say cubic zirconium collection or something.
Yeah, this one was probably the I don't know.
Bottom of the barrel.
To me, I saw this. I had to get it. I had to get it for my own. I had to have it. It's like that Wayne's World thing. It's like, it will be mine. Oh, yes, it will be.
Hell yeah.
And I got it. And I will admit, I was psyched. When I saw that shark taking out that plane mid-flight, I was saying, heck yeah. But then I blanked out, and the next thing I remember, he was biting into the Golden Gate Bridge, which was perfectly fine. I had the hardest time getting anything in between that part at the beginning and the Golden Gate Bridge scene. Even today, I had to watch it 3 times to try and get anything in the middle because I kept falling asleep.
Well, okay, because this movie drastically suffers from that B-movie fucking what do you call it, failure of it's they fill it with a lot of unnecessary dialogue that's unnecessarily complicated. It's I'm not even listening to him anymore. They've been talking for 10 minutes and I don't fucking care.
Well, they could have made the movie just 30 to 40 minutes long, and I've been that's the most excellent movie I've ever seen.
I was wait a minute, they're putting Jessica Simpson in the fucking submarine, okay?
Well, another weird B-movieism you see is where they shoot people walking for an inordinate amount of time, let's shoot them walk down the entire spiral staircase, not because it's artistic, but because we got to fill runtime and we don't have money for effects, or it's just a kid walking through a field for a really long time.
Film costs a lot too, so I don't know.
No, get a cardboard.
I don't know that the movies I'm talking about were shot on film. If you feel me,
Get a cardboard box, paint it to be a shark and just have a guy running around in a cardboard box shark and have it like filling the time in between.
I'd probably enjoy that more than their fucking stale dialogue through a lot of it. And it's, it's just a thing.
Something exactly like bad CGI sharks or something like that,
So,
they should have tightened it up a bit, because it is a bit of a snooze at points where it's like, oh man, this is like, and it's not even actually turning into a porno, it's like it's kind of on that level, but it's not going.
They could have just stuffed it with more Mega Shark and Giant Octopus battles. I mean, I don't think anybody would have complained.
They played it a little too close to the kaiju lane, where they're like trying to introduce this epic battle, and it's like, we know it's not going to be that epic, though,
Well, or it's in the title. It's a versus movie. We want to see them fight. That's why we're watching.
Right.
So just stuff it, with battles.
They were already fighting at one point in time, millennium ago.
Right.
So whatever would happen, one would overpower the other, and
they should have came out of the bitch fighting like Peter and that chicken on Family Guy, man. Like that's exactly what should have been going down.
It's just like that Brock Lesnar and Goldberg match. Goldberg came out 2 minutes flat. He pinned Brock Lesnar. It was in 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, and people were furious. But it's one thing I've learned from my Gamera marathon recently is that you balance it with 3 fights. Because the first Gamera versus movie is kind of a letdown. You don't see like enough fighting, but then right away with Gauss they start the formula where it's like a 3-round thing through the movie. So you get their initial fight, you get like a midway fight, and then you get the final fucking throwdown. And then in between there is usually, well, in the case of part 4, just a lot of stock footage or, like an actual interesting plot that you kind of want to follow.
Well, and then of course you get the kind of monster movie that you'd have on a PBS 10 show because you've got children involved.
Totoro, why couldn't you have blown up in that refinery?
So we got this was strangely enough my second time attempting this film. I can thank Brandon for the first one. I can't remember if you watched it first or if you had said, "Oh, I got this and I gotta show it to everyone." But didn't we watch it with the gaming group?
I think we did because it was like a big thing and everybody wanted to see it. So,
right. And yes, this was one that was a good example of the title promised so much, and it didn't quite deliver. It delivered what you expect, but not quite as much joy involved as you had hoped.
There's some nuggets though, for sure.
There are some nuggets, but I agree with Brandon. It was very hard to maintain my focus through this one, and I probably did sleep this time around on multiple occasions.
I'll be honest.
First time, I think I saw it without sleeping.
I'll be honest. The first time I saw it without sleeping, this time around, I think I fell asleep right before the part where they were about to fight, and then I woke up. I was like, "Wait a minute! They're congratulating each other. What the fuck?"
I'm telling you, though. I mean, it's got a strong opener and a very strong finish. It's just all that padding in between. Right up when that shark is in the San Francisco Bay, chomping on that bridge. That wakes you right up. You're just like right ready to get back into it.
Yeah, that's what you came for,
Right.
If they had like one more good battle in there, some big huge scene to fill that middle a bit, and then just shortened up those filler sections, made it a little closer to like the Gamera formula, it would have been, a lot easier to sit through.
Well, that or like the one that really got it down to a science was the Sharknado series, because there they just fully embraced how ridiculous it could get, because they had like chainsaws, they had going into space. They had, New York, Los Angeles. They had multiple
time.
cities.
They had
Yeah, back
Tara
in
Reid
time,
in a
it's like,
starring role.
yeah, I mean, they had. That's the point. Like they just went for it and they had it all, and it was good stuff with the sharks, but also the campiness extended to the humans,
Oh yeah.
and we got to like them and know them across multiple films, and obviously this is just one film, but the point is the same principle can apply even within the course of one film. It's like the humans can be interesting in and of themselves, and even the Godzilla films, like they never quite got to that level where the humans were overly interesting. And obviously that was really the focus, but it's like that does help when your humans are interesting in their own right.
No, because we cared more about the people running, going Godzilla, Godzilla.
Well, and see, okay, like Gamera 2 gets that right because you have this whole subplot where the dudes are jewel thieves or whatever. Like that could have just been an awesome Japanese jewel thief movie without fucking monsters, and I would have liked it.
You had the kid in the first one that proves that Gamera is the friend to all children. And that they even do the song at the end, which to me makes the first movie actually. But I think though when we're talking about Ed Wood did do something that this movie does not do necessarily. Is Ed Wood could write some very interesting human characters. Say what you will about Ed Wood, if you like him or dislike him. The characters he had in his movies were very memorable characters. Almost all of them.
I agree with that.
Even in something like Glenn or Glenda, which isn't a horror or sci-fi film, like those characters are unforgettable largely because they were real transvestites, and I don't know, it's just, and that's just a small example, but then like I don't know, every character usually has something kind of off the wall to say that is in the guise of a normal thing to say, or the way that they say it is unforgettable, like you can barely understand Tor Johnson in Plan 9 from Outer Space, but boy, is he memorable with the few lines he does have. And then of course, once he becomes zombified, it's like, that face is unforgettable, and there's a good reason why they made that very famous mask based on his face, because it's a good looking face for that kind of thing.
Well, look at even things like the Piranha the remakes of the Piranha movies, where you've got Christopher Lloyd in there playing the scientist. He doesn't have a huge role in any of those movies, but he sticks out. And he's a memorable character. Well, Christopher Lloyd kind of sticks out no matter what movie he's in. But still, it's if you have memorable characters. Yeah, the Hoff, actually, when he was in Sharknado, he was, I think, the father of the main character.
Yeah, he was.
And that's just, cool. Or, Evil Dead. What would the Evil Dead series have been without Ash? I think the first one would have been just as good, but the other two? No, Ash made those other movies.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I love the original Piranha, and I love the remake. And I actually might like the remake just a little bit more. The 2010 one, I might like that one just a little bit more because it had that right blend of enough polish to make it like, okay, I can see why this made it to theaters, but it's not slick enough to where it loses its grindhouse roots. And I mean, you've got Eli Roth in it, and you've got what's his face, Jason Statham's real life wife in there, and I cannot remember her name, but it's like you got all these, and of course Ving Rhames. You got to have Ving Rhames in there. It's like you got some good people that they fit alongside everything else. So it's a good blend there, and it has that right self-aware tone without it, being a straightforward like spoof or anything.
Right.
These are the kind of movies that you really want them to overact as much as humanly possible.
All these people just seem like they could have been like extras on Sequest or something.
And then, so of course,
Like they don't fucking.
So of course, with this one, that does bring us to, we have Lorenzo Lamas of all people in a starring role, and also musician Debbie Gibson, who dabbled in acting and basically shows like someone who dabbled in acting, playing a scientist, of course. Now, am I correct that Lamas was the really, really, really jerkwad character that kept giving her a hard time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then she has Sean Lawler as her mentor, who, unfortunately, I see on IMDb that he died a few months after this came out. It's like, what a way to go. It's like,
yeah, that's rough, man.
Yeah. Quite the swan song.
Well, I think he had 3 other items that came out after this, but
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I always wonder if, gosh, what is his name? If Sean Connery is ever going to come out, just so he doesn't have League of Extraordinary Gentlemen as his swan song.
I liked that movie, man, and I read the comics and shit. I don't know. I
read the comics. They were okay. They were interesting.
I think League could be better if it came out now, for sure.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was fun. I thought it was fun.
It could probably make a better like Amazon Prime original series or something. If they were to adapt it now, it could work really well as that, because I mean, think about it. I mean, the whole point of that series was public domain characters from classic literature, going on adventures, and it's like, that beyond the storylines that were in the various runs of the comic book series, like, that could pretty much go anywhere that they would want, so
yeah. Well, the whole idea of it too kind of lends itself to a serial format,
Oh yeah.
Well, I swear that's what they're doing.
Go anywhere they want.
Like, I swear that's what Universal wants to do with that Dark Universe thing, well, which I think is dead, but
yeah,
back in the day.
It wasn't necessarily a bad idea, just not executed well. And I saw The Mummy in theaters, and I saw it because I had like a credit, like a film, where you get a Blu-ray and you get a $5 off thing for a movie. I went to go see it on like $5 Tuesday, so I saw it for nothing, and that's because I figured, this is probably not going to be that good, but if I'm going to do this, then I might as well not have to really pay for it. And honestly, like, it was very, I kind of called it The Mummy Impossible, because it was basically like a Mission Impossible imitation that happened to have the mummy in it, or a mummy in it. And,
yeah, I was not pleased with it, man.
It felt very like a conflicted concept,
It's fucked.
I liked the mummy herself, and I think that it had some promising elements, but on the whole, it felt very confused as to what it wanted to be. And from what I understood, Tom Cruise really interfered with the direction.
Sure he did.
Yeah, because he's used to being the big action star for decades, and that just felt like kind of a weird choice, like Tom Cruise in this interconnected universe franchise thing. It's like that just, he doesn't really strike me as that kind of person, and obviously it didn't turn out quite that way, and it didn't result in the dark universe that they wanted. And
what they should do is deep fake Tom Cruise into this movie.
Oh wow!
Of course, that was one of the big critiques against League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, was Sean Connery kind of being like, "This is my movie,"
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's what you. I mean, just not to be stereotypical, but based on everything I've ever researched about big action stars, is they're so used to getting their own way and being treated like the queen of the ball, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And and for good reason, because obviously, for the most part, they're the ones that people want to see, at least during their golden eras, back when people went to see the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or the Sylvester Stallone movie because they were in it, as opposed to seeing the latest Spider-Man or the latest Avengers or whatever. But they were so used to getting their own way that they could call the shots. And then now that the tide has turned towards the brand name recognition franchise model, then sometimes that can kind of conflict, or they can just let things go to their heads and they screw up whatever movie they're trying to do.
Yeah, they could have done well with that. One, they didn't need to do separate movies to start it out with, even though they wanted to do the Marvel formula. These are characters that are already well established in the mythos. And then if they had taken no-name actors that are good actors and started them off with that, you can have those plugged in and they become big through these movies.
Or even
it.
a mixture of middle road, like the one Mummy one that I saw in theaters was The Mummy Returns, which was a fun movie. But that was one where you had Brendan Fraser was not a star, but well known, household name. He had Rachel Weisz was barely known, but God, she was hot in those movies.
Oh
And
yeah,
Those movies were fun, and
you had
always
some good, well-known character actors in supporting roles. So that's kind of heck. Even The Rock wasn't a star then.
not in movies, no.
I think it was that movie though. That was one of my favorite quotes ever from Roger Ebert, where it's like The Rock had a very small role as the Scorpion King, and it's like Ebert said something of, "I've always been convinced that The Rock has a movie career ahead of him, and after seeing this film, I believe it's still ahead of him."
Well, I mean, it was, it's like the next year he was in The Rundown, which is a really good movie. And
but it's one of those if they knew then what they know now kind of things, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, sorry, he was in The Scorpion King the next year, and then The Rundown. But
Scorpion King, I bought that soundtrack just because it had like an exclusive Mushroom Head song on it. It's good.
I like The Scorpion King. It wasn't the same movie as the Mummy movies, but it was good in like a kind of Conan the Barbarian kind of style, and then I liked it for what it was. And
I still haven't seen that. Several of us went to the movies, and they all went to Scorpion King, and I elected to see Panic Room instead. Which movie. Panic Room was a good one. But
now, who here would have seen Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus?
I would,
in full on 3D IMAX.
Put it in IMAX, yeah.
That would be
never again. That is
dude.
That would be great.
The only IMAX I will go to is in an IMAX dome. Anything else, they are stealing your money.
Put it in the dome, baby. I want that fucking octopus wrapped around.
Even better. Make it a 4D thing, so that way when they're splashing around or you can get wet, or like maybe the octopus inks right in your face.
Fucking ink right down.
I couldn't do that.
Toss chunks of meat on them and shit.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna do it, it's like go all the way with it.
Oh man, Tremors would be such a good movie for that. Just blowing stink and snot all over people the entire time.
Oh, God, no.
I will, though, to connect our previous discussion to this, I would say the CGI in this rivals that CGI of the Scorpion King. I know all you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, you mean in the Mummy Returns when he's the actual scorpion monster? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know that was kind of notoriously not good. I mean, I'm not sure how it was against other films of the time. I don't think it really stacked up very well, but it certainly has aged very poorly, very quickly. That's for sure.
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily say it was as bad as the CG in this movie, but it was. It could have been.
The CG in this has more charm,
Yeah. Well, yes. The part where the
That's more
shark,
charm because
Not
it's
all of it.
the part where the shark is attacking the plane is cheesy as hell and totally fake, but it's fun.
Dude, I'm pretty
Partly
sure that
because-
really happened, and that was real footage.
When he
Okay?
chopped the chop,
I think it was a real event, dude.
Okay, actually, speaking of that, that was one of my first impressions. The opening sequence takes place off Alaska, right? So you keep switching back and forth between scenes in the sub and scenes of the glacier and scenes of the dude in the helicopter over the glacier, and then scenes of underwater footage. And this underwater footage is pretty clearly from a much warmer climb than Alaska. And I found that very amusing and sad.
But like that
Well,
scene
and,
in
and you could so
Flash.
Oh yes,
you
it's
could
like
so
Splash.
tell
Yes, Splash was.
you could
similar.
so tell that you could so tell that this film made very generous usage of stock footage, like with the underwater.
Oh, yes.
Which, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, well, if you're on a low budget, then why not? But also, that's another thing that Ed Wood would have been very proud of because he liked to use his stock footage like crazy.
And what would you say they
the more you,
used? What would you say they
That
used?
would-
oh wait,
Minutes
Ed
of
Wood
footage?
did something that the Asylum Studios did not. He would actually steal locations of certain sets without permission, and that's where Asylum didn't do anything like that.
Wild West out there, just get it.
But yeah,
I like it when they just blatantly reuse scores too.
He'd
I
be
love
like,
that shit.
he'd be
Hell of
like
the Living Dead.
the guerrilla filmmakers that would jump over the studio fence and be like, "All right, people, follow me." And then they'd go into the studio, and you'd hear alarms and shit. Just don't worry about that shit. Let's keep rolling, people.
Yeah, fuck a permit. I don't know, man. I like stock
nowadays would be like, we'll digitally take out the alarms later. Don't worry about it.
Well, I agree. This movie could have benefited from stock footage. I mean,
But it's like I like stock footage when it's different though. I don't like stock footage when it's in like a Godzilla movie or like Gamera 4 where they just try to get you to believe footage you saw in the last 3 movies is what's actually happening. That's insulting. You know. But
Yeah,
fucking when you have like, Cannibal Holocaust style where it's stock nature footage or something like that. Or stock war footage. I like seeing that shit pop up.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like with Ed Wood, show like footage of an octopus like swimming around or something like that, and then say that's the big one. Yeah, that one.
Look at him. Look at the size of the beast.
yeah, I mean, well, and that a lot of even big budgeted World War II films, like huge epic films, they would use a lot of real like aerial dogfight footage and footage from, I think it was like Tora 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 used a lot of real footage from I think might have been even from The Real Attack or from whatever, but yeah, it's not just that. There's a lot of other war movies that do that, but like it's like, why not? It's real. It was it was like why not? It's real. It was there. It happened. It's on film, and if it can match decently, then why not?
Just don't try to get us to pretend that Gamera is attacking Tokyo in black and white all of a sudden in a fucking movie that came out in like the late 70s. It's just
yeah, that would be a bit weird, but I mean, there's a certain magic to utilizing that which exists in the real world naturally, or like whether it's a location or footage or whatever, if it captures reality in some way that recreating it with a set or CGI or whatever, like it just wouldn't do. I mean,
Right.
I was watching James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd. I finally watched his entire Night of the Living Dead commentary, and in the opening shots of the film, he was talking about like how that was a real road that led to the cemetery, which was a real cemetery, and the real road was all craggly and broken up and all that, and it's just, again, that's how it really looked, and so they just plopped a camera there and filmed it. So, even within something as kind of cheese-tastic as Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, the more that you can, keep it within some framework of reality in terms of locations or stock footage or whatever, then that, that helps stretch out the budget, but also it just, movies can do as much as they can to try and recreate reality, but it never comes close to the real thing.
Right. If I ever made a movie like low budget, bigger scale movie, I would probably be stealing like drone footage like a motherfucker, just taking people's shots and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, there are all kinds of creative ways that you can stretch out a budget in such a way that hopefully doesn't look overly cheap or desperate. I mean, I do think that when you're reusing the same CGI whale shot like back to back, then
That's amazing. I would agree.
I think that's kind of. I think that's kind of pushing it, but it also has its own. That one also kind of has its own cheese-tastic value to it, but I'm saying that it's not necessarily a bad thing to utilize stock footage if you know how to use it right.
Yeah, not at all.
Now you gotta wonder what the group who did this would have done if they had an unlimited budget. Can you imagine Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus with an unlimited budget to do as much absurd CGI that they could? You could have him like going in and taking out a cruise ship or like things like that.
Yeah. Well, but here's the question though. I mean, you could apply that to just about anything. So like if you were to give an unlimited budget to Avatar, then they could probably use that budget to build a ship that could go all the way to a real planet that was like Pandora, you know what I mean? And shoot a documentary or something.
And they would have made sure that the movie starred Tom Cruise.
Yeah. But it's like, well, if as soon as you introduce unlimited budget, then it's like, well, you might as well take that fund, that amount of money and like put it towards building a ship to take you to a planet that is like Pandora in real life. But maybe not unlimited, but like if they had a larger budget, they probably could have either done the same film but with better effects, or they could have done several movies with that much money, or they could have.
Well, it depends on the stipulations of this genie wish of a fucking budget that we're talking about here, is it only usable in that one movie, or is it something that they're just giving you all this fucking money? Like if it's unlimited budget movie and I was making like a low budget movie, I might kick it up a notch, but I think I'm already locked into wanting to make just a low budget fun movie. So I'm probably buying weed and beer and like hiring strippers to wear shark masks to dance while people edit and stuff, Like
or you take that budget and put it towards perhaps not necessarily the movie itself, but you could put it towards marketing or towards wider distribution or towards multiple films, or investing in another film, or that's not your own. There are all kinds of ways to do that, but it's
if there's possibilities outside of using it on that one project,
but the point is that you can the point is within the stipulations of this what if scenario, you'd have to think about like, are you just given the money without like having to please the backers or please a producer or whatever, because there's a lot that
McDuck fucking fortune rolls out,
well there's a lot that goes into it, but if you did have that much, and if it were only towards one film, then you could beef up either the effects or the scale or the marketing or whatever. There's all kinds of put Samuel L. Jackson in it for like 5 seconds. And then give him top billing.
Dude, I'd have bought rights to everything then if it's unlimited. Like just put fucking...
creatures. And
Put all the fucking Godzilla and
movie.
Gamera creatures in there. Barbara Streisand from South Park. Fucking, or just throw them all in there for this big ass battle, man.
I also thought you've cast a musician as one of your co-stars. You have her do a concept album based on the movie or something like that.
I mean, shoot, if you're gonna do that with that type of movie, it's Danny Trejo
Yes.
that should give the 5 seconds and you'd give top billing to.
I mean, he'll do that even in your small budget movie
Yeah,
that
that's
is
true.
in real life. That's not even all that. That's not even all that out there. He'll do that for real.
Or how about
We've
like
been talking a lot in the last few weeks of like the movies with low budgets that we've been covering, like some of the stories that go along with them. Like Mo, what you were talking about, like you remember all the stuff we were talking about with the Mad Max movies about how a lot of the people were paid in beer and that kind of thing.
I was just thinking that. Like, I bet you Danny Trejo would probably do your movie if you're just really nice to him and fed him tamales and a bunch of beer or something.
You know what's
That's
funny
awesome.
though.
Pretty cool,
What's
dude.
really funny is that we're just kind of hashing out this what if scenario of who you could stick in the movie and what all that stuff. I mean, but then again, that is kind of how Kevin Smith's Tusk came to be. It was just kind of a shooting the breeze on the podcast, and all of a sudden it gets made, because it's such a out
Like a
there
joke
idea.
that became a thing,
Yeah,
I
except
personally
what's
love
funny
Tusk.
about that? I did
Mhm.
too, and what's funny about that is that despite it having originated as just kind of like this offhand joke, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if this happened kind of thing, I thought it was a legitimately good, legitimately pretty unsettling body horror film.
fucking
Like
A,
the
finally. I'm
well, and
always telling people
that's
that.
what I mean,
still need
I didn't
to.
really think of it as like a joke film. I thought it was
People
just
went
kind of.
into it
I thought
wanting
it was
that,
pretty
though.
creepy myself.
That's why it turned a lot of people
Yeah.
off. They went into it wanting that, and then it turns out that the humor in Tusk is meant there to be kind of so cringy that it becomes uncomfortable, and then that leads into this super
Yeah.
unsettling fucking situation that you're forced to watch.
Well, it's
And-
like Red State, where he came off of that, which was also very unsettling as a film.
Yeah.
Actually, Tusk is the only one I haven't seen by Kevin Smith, so I can't really say, other than the fact that it introduced the yoga hosers.
You fuck that movie. That movie. You gotta watch Tusk, man. That shit's must see.
Yeah, Tusk is really good, and I wish that which I guess he is, starting to do more horror, because I think that he's good at it. I've not always been a huge fan of like everything he's done. I don't dislike him, but it's one of those things where after a while it kind of becomes it's like we've seen this before. It's like it's getting a little old, but when he does horror, it's like, hey, look at that. He can actually make a pretty
Something
creepy,
creative. Yeah.
unsettling horror film. Yeah.
His other stuff got a bit Big Bang
Well,
Theory. Where it felt like it became almost a parody of stoner nerd culture, And that's where I'm comfortable with Kevin Smith. Like, come on, man.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but it's also like, I get a little weary of him and to a certain extent Tarantino, even though he's a infinitely better filmmaker, and I think Kevin Smith would be the first to admit that. But they both came from that particular milieu of people standing around talking and hanging out, and that alone is an interesting story, or that constitutes enough to make a movie. Like they came out of that. Yeah, or like they called them hangout movies or whatever, which that must have been a thing for a while, because you saw kind of a influx of that, but for me, I've never really understood how that necessarily constitutes good cinema unless the dialogue happens to be interesting to listen to, which in their cases they were lucky that they for the most part that they had dialogue that was interesting to listen to and strange characters and all that. But just as a structure, it's like that's kind of an odd thing to to center a movie around, but they must have come from that. Must have just been a thing at that time, like that
I think it goes back
early
to
90s.
Yeah, if you look at like they were in the special effects boom, like they were a product of it in a lot of ways, because it's like, well, instead of just doing these movies that have to rely on all that flash and fucking, pomp, let's go ahead and do something that goes back more to like older movies. Where, man, sometimes there's points in like classic films where just that crisp, good dialogue is better than any like visual spectacular in the movie,
Oh yeah. Well, it's more so
in there with those guys where it's like if we can make the dialogue good, you can make those scenes as like powerful as any scenes where something actually happens in the movie.
Well, you were talking.
Yeah, it just depends. As long as there's some kind of forward progression, like a good example, like it can't just stop, because like a good example of a kind of hangout moment that actually deceptively builds really good tension is for lack of a better word, the saloon scene in Inglourious Basterds, where they're drinking and playing the card game where they're trying to guess who each other are, with it on their forehead or whatever. Like, at first you're like, okay, where's this going? They're just kind of hanging out, but that has a lot of deceptively good suspense that gets built up, and it's like, that's a way to do that kind of thing right, because you are still moving the story forward just in an unexpected way, because it looks like you're just taking a break, but you're really setting up something pretty important.
True. I suppose if you could also look at it the other way, which is like, if you set up good banter, it doesn't matter if it goes anywhere. Like Clerks, a lot of that movie doesn't really go anywhere. It's just them dudes being them dudes.
And that's really the weakness.
Well, that's a unique exception, because it is a comedy, and that's part of what drives it is the interactions. But yeah, I mean, I think enough things happen in there to have sufficient conflict to keep it moving. But
but not every scene of just the banter.
It really is. It's a day in the life. Very eventful.
Yeah.
I think
that's probably his best film. Or besides Tusk, that's my favorite of his is Tusk, but it's not necessarily representative of his whole filmography.
Yeah, I'd probably go Clerks and fucking Dogma than Tusk. Sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think dialogue, to bring it back to Mega Shark, I really do think that dialogue is the key, because I think if it was punched up by somebody, I mean, Kevin Smith and Tarantino do have that in common, that dialogue. Now, if it was punched up to that level, that would be cool. I mean, if you had somebody...
great of this shit, though.
If you had like a Roger Corman at the helm of it, because Corman is known for being tightwad and somehow managing to spread those pennies.
And yet there was great dialogue in Little Shop of Horrors. There was some great stuff there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. But in this one, I mean, I'm pretty sure the height of it for me was when that guy was like, "You're insane!" And he's like, that fucking got at that. That was like peak fucking acting. I also really liked that dude that was like, "You don't want to go in that. You want to get in there and get in that tent, that security guard before it blows up." And he's like, "Shh."
Right.
Well, I mean, well, and not to jump too far ahead, but in the Meg, I thought there was quite a lot of dialogue that made me laugh out loud. So I mean, you can have your cheesy monster movie and have dialogue and interactions that really keep it moving and might even make you laugh out loud, because I really did find much of that laugh out loud funny. And same with Piranha 3D, like that had some very funny dialogue and very memorable moments. And
those are more like written for our sensibilities, though. I think too. This is just a movie they made out of, I'm pretty sure, like a storage said fucking editing bay somewhere. And Sci-Fi was just like, "We'll pay you nothing to do this, so just be thankful you have a fucking job." And they did it, and that's how it came out. I get the feeling that the other people didn't know how to write that great, and they probably thought the script from whoever gave it to them was brilliant or whatever. So they just left in all the dialogue that shouldn't have been in the movie.
Let's see here. Let's see. Who do we have?
What's that, Dave?
The fact that, yep, like the fact that Emma, I think that's her name, Emma McNeil. She, in order to come up with the idea how to attract the shark and the octopus to the containment area, is to have sex with the Chinese dude.
Why not?
Well, that works. Do it in the middle of the water. It works for attracting mass murderers like Jason and Freddy and all of these other ones. So why wouldn't it attract a giant shark?
Oh wow!
If you're going by the logic of the shark from Jaws being the same shark in each movie, which they never say whether or not it's the case, but let's pretend that it is. It's like, well, that shark keeps coming back, much like like Freddy Krueger or something. So who knows? Maybe it works for sharks too.
So the writer director of this, Jack Perez, actually has a half decent movie or two on his credit. Because I've seen the Big Empty, and it's actually not bad. It's got a hell of a cast.
I think for this kind of movie, he went under the name Ace.
Right.
Okay. When you're using an alias.
He had to hide behind an alias.
Yeah, that's when you're like, you wrote this at the Ramada Inn, all fucking hungover.
When you really want
something, you're like, I just want to get it out there. What's that?
Well, he got some.
I think he just.
What's that?
Hey, Dave.
Ace Hannah was the name that he went under for this one.
Yeah.
Sounds like a badass fighter pilot.
At least it wasn't. At least it wasn't Alan Smithy, right?
Well, shoot. James Cameron had Piranha to the Spawning on his chart.
Right.
Just because, and not to say that that's a terrible film. Well, okay, it is a little bit, but it's a fun film. And, it's, that's the thing, is that they do these things. Look at Peter Jackson. People, when he was doing the, Lord of the Rings, they were all thinking, well, he just does these awesome movies. They didn't associate him with, Meet the Feebles or Bad Taste.
My favorite film of his is Meet the Feebles.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fun movie. I'm just saying you don't usually associate Lord of the Rings with Meet the Feeble.
Right.
You should, but that's a film that no big budget studio would ever make, and that's why if you're working on an independent level or whatever, you gotta just go for it and make something that no large studio would ever think to make, because they would never dare risk such a thing. And I think even Robert Rodriguez said that that you needed to do something that Hollywood would never ever make, and that's how you take advantage of your position.
Yeah, you got to make it memorable.
They did do it with the what was it? That movie. It didn't come out that long ago either. What was that movie? It was very similar to Meet the Feebles, but wasn't done as well.
The Happy Time Murders.
Happy Time Murders. Yeah, you see, and that's the thing, is though you got to wonder if whether having it produced by the bigger money actually ruined the picture in that sense.
Well, dude, I mean,
they play it too safe. That's the problem.
Yeah, they draw from the nostalgia well, they sanitize it, and they put it out there for people. That's basically. I don't think that's going to stop. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like Bad Taste riffed on eventually.
I mean,
a Pixar movie or some shit.
Even Lamb Chops was a little bit independent from the major studios.
Lamb Chops, like the show with the fucking.
Yeah.
Actually, I liked that show when I was a kid.
Yeah, that was
That and Wishbone, that was popping.
That was
Probably
great.
should get back to it, or at least start
I
working
think though,
towards
okay,
wrapping
let's
up.
commemorate ourselves here though for filling, because this, we did a good job of filling the center half of this movie with general movie discussion. So I mean, we talked about the beginning, and I think we covered like the flying sharks. So now it's time to talk about the end.
Well, it does bear mentioning that the director also directed Wild Things too, so that's something there.
They did have.
His follow-up was a movie that I've been meaning to see and never got around to, called Some Guy Who Kills People.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah.
great! I love that movie.
So yes,
It's a good title.
yes.
Oh, it's great! It's a great film. So they did have one scene, because we talked about the shark, but then there's the giant octopus, and the giant octopus does spend most of its time up in Japan fighting the Japanese Navy, snatching missiles out of the air. And
for Japanese octopus, that's pretty much par for the course, I think.
But otherwise, I don't remember much of. I remember that scene where the tentacle goes up and snatches that thing out and it throws it.
Yeah.
That's about all I remember from the octopus. And that apparently giant sharks and giant octopuses are natural enemies of each other, and they have to fight each other. That's just how it was.
Not only are they natural enemies, like instinctively, but they fucking hate each other. Apparently,
Yeah.
These were like mortal enemies. They were like all at each other, and they were frozen.
I don't know if it exists like that in the animal kingdom, but okay.
Well, they touched on that in the Meg too, which we'll mention, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and that's something that's kind of funny. Once we get there, there were a surprising amount of parallels between the two, because there was, I think it was the giant squid technically, but or was it an octopus or a squid that they were there? But okay, but the point is, it was close enough to where you could draw the comparison in your head,
Right.
and it wasn't they weren't frozen in a glacier, but it was underneath the layer of freezing water, and then it was in the thermal vent or whatever. But which that does beg the question of how extensive that thermal vent, or like how extensive that underwater warmer, the sub level of warmer water, how extensive that is, because sharks tend to need a lot of room to roam, especially, I'm sure, a huge shark like the megalodon.
Well, we don't know
the entire trench.
there. You just saw that what their little view of that fucking trench. There could be like whole cavernous things down there. We're just gonna go ahead and put it on record now that a vast majority of the Meg will not make scientific sense. It's not meant.
No.
I'm sure more of it will make more sense than the science in this one.
True.
Anybody actually? I was going to just say, does anybody actually have a favorite scene that doesn't involve either the shark taking the plane out of the air or the shark taking a chunk out of the Golden Gate?
Oh, for sure. When that guy freaks out when he's like trying to get him to dive the sub or whatever, and he's like, "You're insane!" That part fucking had me laugh. I like rewound it and watched it like 3 fucking times, dude.
If only that overacting was throughout the whole of the movie.
Right, because he's doing it at first. I think honestly what happened there is he was serious, like he was giving a serious take, and then afterwards he was just messing around where he's like starts being like, "Yeah," like he just starts fucking not even saying words. And I think they just kept rolling, and they're like, "Yeah, that's good."
I like it when Debbie Gibson gets first introduced, and they're trying their best to like have some semi-plausible scientific banter, like when those sonic whatever things are dropping from the helicopter, and it's like they're trying to make this sound plausible, but it just sounds like I'm an actor trying to sound smart, and I don't know what I'm saying, And
it sounds like when they have one of those discussions with a porn star that's playing a fucking scientist or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're like, we're just saying words right here. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
It reminded me of Denise Richards playing a scientist in that one Bond movie.
Yeah, the world's not enough. That movie had Sophie. That movie had Sophie Marceau in it, and
it did have a badass garbage.
Look if they put Britney Spears in the role, So
well, that would have been awful.
or awesome,
I hear they can't act for anything.
But some of her recent Instagram weirdness has been entertaining. So
Well,
I would say just let her be weird and film her for a while. Like, get her to try the lines, and then just see what happens.
Right.
Oh, wait. What was that again?
I don't know. Do you have a favorite moment there, Dave? Sorry, that sounded so aggressive.
Besides the fight out of the Golden Grid, the plane part was I don't know. That was too hokey for me for some reason.
It was hokey as hell. Hokey as hell. Yeah.
Because that wasn't even a true fall. It was like a fall into nothingness, and it was like they took and drew the freaking shark on like 30,000 things of paper and just kind of curl.
I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure that was real footage, man.
I'm a book of that.
I can't believe that you draw the line there.
I'm fairly certain that they fucking can jump up there.
It's called Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus. Anything goes.
Yeah, a shark eating a plane is somehow ridiculous.
There's no such thing as too hokey.
No,
man.
You gotta ground it somewhere.
Same respect. I mean, I almost feel like it was too hokey. That's all. There is no such thing as too hokey.
Like, if it was going to be too hokey, it should just went all in on it,
Right.
It kind of...
They could have gone all in on this one, and it does feel like they hedged their bets a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of... If they had gone all in, that could have been great.
Ooh, if this had that Sharknado vibe.
Imagine that the filmmakers had approached it with the level of seriousness that, again, Ed Wood have attached, or Tommy Wiseau supposedly did with The Room, that sort of thing. Like, if you...
okay, not... the one point I disagree with Dane on is I think they did take this a little too serious, because towards the end, they try to get philosophical on our asses. And they're, talking about...
They took it a lot more seriously than, say, Sharknado, which... I mean, I'm of the opinion that, if they had gone... Like, Sharknado did go all the way, and, now luckily they had, 6 movies with which to go, but still, it's like... sure, I would have. I think that you could always, for this kind of thing, it's just go for it. Put Martians in there or something. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not
necessarily meaning going all in on the series. It's got to be this horrible, this high class work of art, but just that level of dedication. You know what I mean? But anyway,
the writers they were writing for Hollywood, so that's why they took it seriously.
Hollywood, I'm pretty sure this made it right from the storage unit to fucking sci-fi. They probably
this was like Encino. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's when it gets a little philosophical there at the end, they totally lose me. Thank God for that final sequence or whatever, because without that, that's just oh God. Okay. Here we go.
Well, I mean, but hey, Birdemic did that a lot more egregiously because James Nguyen really did want to try and preach a environmental message in his Killer Birds movie.
But it's creepily charming in that because he's so behind it. And in this, it's just come on.
I wasn't stalking her, Judge. I was creepily charming.
Fucking whatever kid wrote the Shark versus Octopus script here. They really put some faith in him at that point when he fucking got to where he was doing some philosophical crap at the end, random event or the confluence of fucking individual paths is what creates the universe, and it's oh boy. Like I smoked entirely too much weed, thinking this was a different sort of movie before you're asking me to think about.
You know, it would have been great.
Maybe
That
he
would have
was
been great.
smoking all along, and it finally kicked in, and that's when he had to get philosophical.
You know what would have been great is if at the end, if they did have like that big, kind of melodramatic, animal and man must learn to coexist. You know, that whole thing. You know, some kind of really melodramatic speech, and then they pull a end of what's up, Doc. You know, with Barbara Streisand and what's his name, Ryan O'Neal, where they parody "Love Means Never Having to Say You're Sorry," and he's like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." Like they should have done something like that. That would have been awesome.
That would have been funny.
Good times.
Well, I guess we should be starting to wrap up so we can get ready to move on to the next showing.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say this movie was absolute shit because it wasn't. There was moments.
It was too entertaining to be absolute shit.
It
Come
was.
on.
I think,
even though I don't think I'll be watching it with any sort of regularity, I'm very happy it's on the shelf. It was worth it.
I'm gonna steal that, Jake. That's a nice way of saying I'm never fucking watching this again. Maybe
I actually think of it as a movie that was okay, but had the potential to be a B movie, like must see.
Yeah,
it was a B movie. Yeah, you could see it and enjoy it instead of a you've got to see this. It could have been. It's what could have been. There's a lot of potential there.
Couldn't have said it.
It could have been a B movie for the ages, as they say.
I mean, from the onset, I mean, it looked explosive, like a movie that could be seen over and over and over again. Except, I want to see the Golden State Bridge intact. At least.
Dave, that shark exploded right out of that water and ate that plane. That wasn't explosive enough for you?
So-called ate it because then we saw it like fall and fall again, and fall again, and fall again. So
it needs to have sharks with freaking lasers.
Oh, now we're talking.
Has there been a movie with that title yet?
Oh, you know there's
sharks with freaking lasers. I think it should be sharks with freaking laser beams attached to their heads. That should be the title.
Laser shark.
I would say, yeah.
Can you imagine how
Laser
badass your Armada would be if you paired them with those rocket penguins from Batman Returns? Like you'd just shred
laser sharks versus rocket penguins.
Fuck yeah. Yes.
There we go.
And then we start a Jackalope trilogy on the side, and then eventually they all merge. And
Laser shark versus rocket penguins wearing lederhosen.
All right.
Well, and then the post-credit scene is a talking jackalope that plots to take over the world, and that's the sequel bait.
Lead it in cinematic universe style.
With
Why
ill-tempered
not?
sea bass.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, by the way, go ahead.
I was going to say the jackalope has an army of ninja squirrels.
Just for the leader of the thing at the end for the big reveal, we just use one of those big mouth Billy Bass things that comes out and is like, take me to the
You see,
just very, very quickly, a massive shout out to a movie that is, to me, a B movie must see, which is Zombievers, which is kind of in that same. Yeah, that's kind of in that same line of thinking.
They did that right. That one though, I think that they handled that right all the way through to the end.
That was awesome.
That was like Black Sheep done again in a positive.
Black Sheep was good.
Black Sheep was amazing.
Oh, you like Black Sheep? You like Zombievers? It's similar stuff.
All right. So.
All right.
You guys.
I'm not a tree. I'm a fucking sheep.
I don't know that this movie was worth the amount of discussion we even gave it.
Well, I don't know how much of this
think
discussion was for.
The director would probably be happy that we spent so much time on it.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome, sir. It was fun, but I think we had a lot of fun because of it. So
Yes.
either way we swing it, whether we're thanking you for the movie or just for this good time, we appreciate it, man. So if you ever made this thing, ever sees this,
When you can't really talk about the movie, I guess that says a lot about it. So,
well, it's pretty much like you guys covered it. There's the beginning plot, then a lot of people.
Well, actually, this discussion handled it pretty well. We started off talking about the movie, then we went off base and went off out in somewhere, and then came back to it at the end.
Yeah, so it's very much representative of the experience of watching this movie. And,
but we covered important things, like we talked about, like how one can go about, spreading out one's budget if one's making a, low budget independent film. I mean, that we didn't go like totally all over the place.
We talked about several vastly superior movies,
Yeah, but I mean that's what you do though. You do comparison contrast.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, think of this instead of just shark and octopus sushi as like a sushi spread. You know what I mean?
Well, like Fortune Bowl or one of those. No, that's not what I mean. Like
we all just enjoyed it and drank too much sake, bro.
I wish I could.
I didn't have enough.
Yeah.
You just
all
need
right.
Australian piss beer. Anyways.
So
Dane looks like a Mortal Kombat character down there with that fucking that pop filter in front of his face.
Right.
Oh, you look like Dane.
I'll start the outros here because we need to get moving. Yes. So this here is Fu.
Hello, little baby.
He actually is a member of the Septum Sin versus the World crew. You see him in most of our videos. He likes to hang out in the background and direct us.
What's that one always put his ass on the camera?
Oh, that would be Mr.
Like I say, if you want to see him or more of him, you need to subscribe to my channel. And there you go.
Thanks for the shameless plug there, folk gods. All right.
All righty. Well, the charade.
What about you there, Jake? You got anything to plug?
All right. Well, I am also having fun as a cast member on Septum Sin versus the World. We kept it brief this week, but we are going to hopefully be able to do more next week. And and meanwhile, just working hard, waiting until the day the floor drops out, because that's going to happen. All right.
Got to do those nature videos, Jake.
I know. I got to get out and do that. I need a chance to do it.
Even more reason to do it now because there's less people, so there's more nature.
Right.
Who's next?
Maybe I could come to his house and hold a big sturgeon pole so I could be 6 feet behind him, but it's 6 feet in front of him, and I just have some anime on the end, like a little string. I lead him out there into the woods. All right, Jake, do those videos.
Oh God.
What about you, Dan? You got anything you want to put?
Well, I'm trying to think because it's been kind of a crazy time for me lately. Besides all the drama that I recounted in the last discussion or whatever, even besides that, I moved out of my old place back in February, late February, and then just on Friday, I moved out of that place, moved into the place that I was going to move into in June, except that the timeline moved up a little bit because the person that I was going to move in with was able to take me sooner. So, I've been a little bit kind of up in the air as far as location, plus, trying to find another job, given the coronavirus nonsense having, gotten me laid off and all that. So I have been pretty busy on those levels, but, I'm going to get back into being creative and writing a lot of spec scripts and things. I would like to at some point. I think it would be a lot of fun to write a like we talked about laser sharks versus rocket penguins. It's like I think that would be a ton of fun to write something like that. To be honest with you,
For sure.
yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, I've had a lot of ideas lately about horror spec scripts that would be like small to mid budget that are still mainstream enough to attract some hopefully some kind of somewhat mainstream attention. But you know, now that I'm somewhat settled, I'm going to get back into doing that on top. In between trying to find another job, which I'm hopefully there's one in particular I'm hopefully kind of circling in on. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so because I've done a lot of shorts lately that have been included in horror anthologies. I'm an associate producer on an upcoming horror film called Heir of the Witch, which is a feature that my friend Victoria Bell Moore is starring in, and she wrote and is directing it. So it's pretty exciting. But yeah, just trying to be of use in some way while I kind of restart my life, pretty much.
You've been a great addition to the discussion, man. It's good.
You should. You really should.
Go ahead.
I was going to say you really should get in touch with that director that Dave and I interviewed. He's got to be an expert at putting out many films, getting them distributed, and on a next to no budget type deal. He's
which one? Which director?
Evan Jacobs. Yeah,
Evan
he
Jacobs.
Does, yeah, he does the Anhedenia films. He is like a powerhouse as far as knocking them out.
Sweet. Yeah, definitely connect us if you don't mind, because I would like to. I really do think that things like Zombievers and stuff, I think that they're really, really fun when they are approached with that proper spirit of fun. And, I would like to do that in addition to, some really good kind of disturbing horror, because, I like it all. But yeah, basically I'm trying to just restart my life, and I'm trying to up my Blu-ray collection as well, because I had to sell a lot of them back when I had a spendthrift fiance that I had to keep backstopping. But now that that's not the case, I'm getting it built back up again, but better. And I'm probably going to try and do like a separate devoted channel to Blu-ray collecting, for YouTube, just because it's something I wanted to do for a while. And I could do reviews and just how I go about collecting and everything like that. Just I don't know, something I wanted to do for a long time.
Okay, man, let us know. We'll check it out and we'll plug the shit out of that.
I will. I'll probably do like. See, I need to get my own editing software, or at least, hopefully, when I find another job, I can, my first big investment can be like a subscription to the Adobe Creative Cloud, and but in between, then I can probably find something really like free or inexpensive or something, because initially I was probably just going to use my my iPhone because it records 4K, to start off with, and then.
Yeah, simple videos. You don't need like some crazy editing page.
Exactly. I mean, and I was gonna like my first video is probably gonna just be a full collection video to start with, and then just kind of break it down by like horror and or whatever genre, and then how to organize it, or how I go about collecting. Just little things like that, because people need to. If anybody's interested in that sort of thing, I think it'd be a good kind of how to guide, as well as the joys of it. Because when I first got moved into this new place, the internet decided to get knocked out due to the storm, and it's like, well, that's one of the many reasons why you'd want to have physical media, because of that. Plus, like, if you're in Italy and they decided to get rid of the high-speed internet because of it sapping too much of the bandwidth during the coronavirus. It's like, there's all kinds of reasons why you want to have that stuff on top of extra features and things like that.
Oh yeah, well that's why I fully agree with Brandon's channel and shit. Maybe I probably don't do as much to push physical media, because I definitely will always tell people where you can like stream shit if I know it.
Yeah, streaming has its place. Don't get me wrong.
I'm
but-
about people watching this stuff, Like I give a fuck if they like own it or not. But I personally prefer to have it physically, but if I can get someone else to watch it, I'm stoked on that. So
yeah, I mean, and I can probably do my research on like a specific film to see if it's streaming anywhere, even though it'll probably be really out of date.
I'll tell you if it's like used, if it's not on something for free, I don't even mention it.
Yeah. Well, I just I think it'd be a good way to kind of bounce back from the pain of having had to sell a lot of stuff, which I really hated to have to do. But I won't.
Connecting with people as you build it back up and shit.
Yeah. Well, that and it. At least I did it for noble reasons, which was to put the one that I loved ahead of everything else. But now that is out of my life, I'll never do that for anybody else ever again. But also,
I still have like Nintendo 64 games from when I was a kid. They don't fucking want that.
I did.
That's how I roll.
Yeah, I still have my original N64, and that's never going away, no matter what.
Fucking, I'll live alone with that in a cabin before I'll fucking get rid of it for
seriously, I think I'd rather like hack off an arm or something before I got rid of that thing.
Take those Mad Max brands right on the back. Fucking Dave, I'm gonna let you go real quick, and then I'll come back. I'll fire out my plugs here. I gotta step aside. Someone's on the front door.
All right.
I'll be right back.
My name is David Strege. I run. I'm a founding father of Inside Movies Galore, but I run it with most of you. And many of you have been with me along this journey for many a century now. Old, fat, and bored in this coronavirus situation. But I also run another channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I do video pickups and video reviews and whatnot. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is that I've done a couple of interviews lately that are on my channel. Brandon and I did one not too recently with Evan Jacobs. I also just recently did one with a director by the name of Joseph Kelly, and he's the one that's going about and doing those clown motion movies that are out there. Once that shows up, due to internet inefficiency of not being able to show up on internet, and that definitely check that interview out and check out the campaign for Clown Motel 2 if you can. It's got 6 more days on it, and if you want to get in on it, there's a really cool DVD for $25. You can get your name in the film and get it right away. But next we have the Meg coming up. So if anyone hasn't gone yet, have you gone, Mo?
I haven't. I also have another interview lined up for you guys. Sorry I didn't get back to you earlier, bud. I was pretty sick the other day. Basically, just check out my channel. First off, go sub Rebel Game Club. Everybody that ever fucks with me needs to just go sub those guys. I don't do as much stuff with them as I used to. I really need to get back to it, but they deserve more subs than I ever will. And then, Drunken Master Studios. I've been doing some kaiju quarantine shit over there lately where I'm basically just posted up in my house reviewing a bunch of kaiju movies. Got a whole batch of Gamera shit. The first volume of the Gamera-thon coming here in the next couple of days. I was supposed to have a whole thing of Ultraman episodes reviewed, which I did do. I reviewed the episodes. I just couldn't shoot any of the bumpers for him because shit ended up happening. It was supposed to be out like on Saturday, but it's coming next Saturday, and those actually might have to go down to a bi-weekly thing. But either way, I'm going to be reviewing kaiju movies through this entire bitch right here. I'm just going to go through everything non-Godzilla, and then when that's done, we're going to focus solely on Godzilla. And until the goddamn quarantine ends and life goes back to normal. So,
Well, I want that Criterion set so bad.
and you know, outside of that, I'm working on reviews for just other movies that I've picked up recently. I got one for Color Out of Space that's going to be coming out. Let Me In, Drag Me to Hell. What else did I do here? Final Girl, and then the Friday the 13th remake. So
Okay.
Ooh.
I just don't give a crap. You want to watch like movie reviews and me take bong hits and fucking drink beer? Come over there and we'll hang out and do that. I also got a video coming out soon that's going to be pretty massive, so check that out as well.
Awesome. Anyone else need to go?
No.
I think that's all of us, buddy.
Alrighty. I think that's it for this show, ladies and gentlemen. Just like, share, and subscribe, and watch out for any octopuses or giant sharks that are out there. Be forewarned that they
Be careful flying over those oceans, man.
Well, and just very, very quickly before we sign off, there was actually a story, this is real, that there apparently, I forget where, but on this one beach that there are octopi that are heading up onto the beaches, onto the land for seemingly no reason whatsoever. So they're coming for you.
Now they got to battle their mortal enemy, the sharks.
Oh yeah. Well, and